going live in less than 10 seconds and I should be live. Hello everybody. Welcome back to my stream. I've been away for a very long time. I do apologise. I've been trying to keep people up to date. I'm hoping you guys can actually hear me, because 1 second, I'm getting signal on my microphone, but I don't know how it's coming through. Just bear with me a second, guys, because I am losing it. I'm doing my first stream back and make sure everything is. And there we go. For some reason it didn't transition over. It's very delayed. There we go. I do apologise for that. For some reason I didn't press the transition button, as I thought it would transition from my stream deck, but it is what it is. But yeah, welcome back to my stream, guys. I'm sorry I've been away for so long, as many of you may have realised or seen from my tweet about 5 years ago now, just at the beginning of COVID, about maybe a quarter of the way through COVID, I unfortunately started, well, becoming ill and ended up with cancer. So I did actually prepare a script for myself, just because there's a lot of information I'm going to go through in this stream, as it took me a lot of time to try and jot down 5 years worth of shit I've been through for the last, well, 5 years. So basically, as I've stated before, I've been away mainly due to poor health around COVID time, as I've explained earlier at the beginning of the thing. I was diagnosed with cancer. I did do a small stream. I don't know where the videos have gone. For some reason, Twitch didn't record it. I don't know where they've gone or if they're in my profile. But I have checked my profile recently, and for some reason it always shows streams from when I was like living with my ex donkeys years ago. There's just, the stream's not there. But if you go through my Twitter, you'll be able to see like the updates and stuff with regards to everything anyway. But I did do like a small explanation of where I was up to with my cancer and some parts of my cancer journey, and basically updated where I can, because I was spending quite a lot of time in hospital, as you can imagine. So I'm just going to do a recap, basically to refresh people's memories and to share my journey for new people, and basically for any one of those who are going through cancer or know someone who's going through cancer, so you can see from a cancer patient's perspective to be able to support that person, or maybe learn some knowledge yourself with regards to how cancer works, the problems that can come from cancer and chemotherapy and stuff like that. I do apologise. I am absolutely in agony in my back at the moment, which is one of the side effects of cancer. You can experience quite a lot of pain. So if I do look like I'm jolting around again, it's because I'm trying to restructure myself. So if you remember, around 5 to 6 years ago, during a live stream, I can't remember what I was streaming. I think it was we're doing a retro weekend, and because I had a setup which, unfortunately for those people who did like my retro streams back then, they've now gone because I've got rid of my PS1, PS2, and so forth. But during that stream, a lot of people noticed that I was getting a very nasty cough, to the point where it's constant. I was struggling to breathe. I sound like wheezing or coughing from Pokemon, which would probably be better. Probably more like a wheezing. but my voice was very hoarse. Just couldn't string sentences together. I couldn't concentrate on the games I was playing just because I was constantly coughing. So it was that bad. Obviously, it made me stop from doing my streams, even though I did try to power through it as best I could. And I'm sure many people who have been in my previous streams would have remembered that from many, many years back. It got so bad that I must admit it was beginning to affect my sleep, and even every time I'd like go for a shower or have a bath, the steam, because it was getting into my lungs, was properly badly affecting me to the point I just couldn't cope. So, with all that said, I ended up taking my first step. So, with all the coughing beginning to get out of hand, I basically got in touch with my doctors and said, there's something wrong. I don't know what it is. If it's a chest infection or if there's any underlying circumstances which are causing these coughs, I need to know and it needs to get sorted because it's enabling me to stop doing the things I want to do. So, with that being said, they tried a course of antibiotics, which I started with at first. I think it was amoxicillin. Shame my dad's not in the stream right now because I'm sure he would refresh my memory, but I think it was amoxicillin I started with first. Unfortunately, that didn't start doing the job, so they put me on a different course of antibiotics. And this, which was, I believe, what's the second course off the top of my head? I'm looking back from notes, I don't know why I'm not thinking about my head when I've got my notes here. Yeah, I started on a different course of antibiotics where I was put on clarithromycin. Then basically one day while I was taking my clarithromycin, I was due to go and play golf with my dad, which when he comes to pick me up to start our round of golf, he noticed that my face was rather large and it was very swollen and basically like a blown up beach ball is the best way to describe it. If I can find I'll show you the picture if I can find it. I've got it here somewhere. I should be more prepared. I did try to prepare everything. I do apologise that I might be jumping to and from things, so please bear with me while I just try and get my bearings again. Yeah, so this was me basically in a hospital with my face completely blown up like an absolute beach ball. After basically me and my dad, when he spotted it, we got straight onto 111, as I'm sure anybody would. As well, for those who don't know, 111 is the UK's helpline before proper emergency helpline, which would be like 999, which it might have been 999 we called because we were in a need of quick assistance. So basically, after talking to them, they basically confirmed that I had an allergic reaction, sent an ambulance straight out to me, and as the ambulance arrived, I was rushing to the back of it, basically quickly assessed the swelling before injecting me with some adrenaline, which brought the swelling in my face down and also gave me a round of oxygen just to basically help my breathing get back to a healthy state before rushing me off to hospital. So at the hospital, so with this reaction, obviously I was rushing to triage, where I was given more medical treatment to help with the swelling, to try and bring it down more because my face was still quite puffy, as you can see from that picture I just showed. I was then sent for an x-ray to look at my chest just to see if there's any abnormal things that was stopping my breathing or if it was basically more affected. So this is where basically this kind of allergic reaction became a godsend. As bad as it sounds, from having allergic reactions to antibiotics to basically that leading to them finding out about this cancer, is unreal. It's basically kind of, I don't know, a lucky factor, should we say? Because it was like, oh, I just thought it was a chest infection, but and then started antibiotics, I had this allergic reaction, and without even knowing that I had this cancer underlined until they started going through these chest x-rays, which I'm about to go through in a second, that's how they basically found it. So I took X-rays of my chest, and then from then they did a diagnosis, began to take shape. So in my chest, from the X-rays, they found a mass, like a rather large mass, caused by my lymph nodes, which were particularly swollen. So, as many you might not know, cancer can develop from these lymph nodes. Lymph nodes can become inflamed or aggressive to the point that they start to swell and take up your chest, which can cause my coughing and henceforth kicks off my cancer. So basically, from looking at my lymph nodes, my short stay from a possible allergic reaction to just some antibiotics was basically confirmed to being a longer stay, which was you might have cancer. This, of course, I'm sure if anyone else it would shock me to my core. It surprised my dad because going off script here, we were in the back of the when we were in the back of the ambulance and I was receiving my adrenaline shots. I was even joking to him, saying like, "Oh fuck, I think it's cancer. I think it's this. I think it's that." And he's like, "Stop it. It's not even funny to joke about." And then, truth be told, look what idiot did. End up with cancer. So basically, kind of wished it on myself, which some skeptical ways people would think, yeah, just from what you said, you've wished it on yourself. Therefore, that's how you've ended up with cancer. But it is what it is. So with that mass being confirmed, they had to do a biopsy on my chest, which they took out a sample, sent it off to the labs to basically, well, to sample these nodes to basically send it off to the labs to confirm if it was this cancer. So I was in hospital for probably about a week or so while I waited for the results. And then when the results come back, they diagnosed it as high-grade non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. So I'm just going to switch screens here just so I can show you guys what that particularly is. I'm sure many of you know what non-Hodgkin's lymphoma is, but just because I've got all the information here at the side of me, so just bear with me a second while I switch transition. So here we have the overview. So basically, non-Hodgkin's lymphoma is a type of cancer that develops in the lymphatic system, a network of vessels and glands that spread throughout your body, hence the swollen mass in my chest. The lymphatic system is part of our immune system. Clear fluid called lymph flows through the lymphatic vessels and contains an infection fighting with white blood cells known as lymphocytes. In non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, the affected lymphocytes start to multiply in an abnormal way and then begin to collect in certain parts of the lymphatic system, such as the lymph nodes, which is the swollen things that are in my chest. Many people get affected by this, and the cause is technically unknown. It's basically unknown. No one knows the cause of cancer. Otherwise, we'd have a cure for all cancers like that, and no one would end up with cancer. From my experience, I think it can be caused from stress or something that's gone on in your life which has caused this kind of aggression to kick off in your body. I don't know. That's what I play in my head anyway, but don't take my word on it. So the medical condition weakens your immune system, and basically take certain medication. So there's different treatments, of course. So high grade, which I was at, which is basically an aggressive non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, is where the cancer grows quickly and aggressively. But there's also a low grade where the symptoms may not show up for a few years down the line. But lucky for me, due to the allergic reaction, they found obviously lymphoma and took it from there. So, with that being said, I went, after being diagnosed with this non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, I went to a hospital close near me, I believe in Hatton. In Hatton, which is around my area in Warrington. Basically got sent there where I started a treatment called RCHOP, which is here. So R-CHOP is a treatment which is basically used in non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, which is I believe, a 12-cycle program. Let me find it here. Which is given through IVs, can also be given through a cannula, central line or PICC line. A cannula is what they did for me for my treatment. So as you can see here, course of antibiotics. Oh, sorry, it's actually 14 days. I've got my dates mixed up. I thought it's 12. So on day 1, when I went into hospital to start this R-CHOP, I received a drip, which was this rituximab, as well as this. I'm going to butcher half of these names, so I do apologise to any medical professionals or doctors that may be watching this stream or re-watching this at some point. This this is why I was nervous to do this stream, because I knew I'd butcher half of these. Cytoproximate, which is basically a slow injection, which is infused into my vein, as well as this doxorubicin, which is another slow injection. Fluticasone is another infusion, as well as prednisolone tablets, which helps with the nausea, I believe, which is what the prednisolone tablets is used for. So I started day 1 of that. I think I ended up doing about 2 or 3 days of this, but this is where my cancer starts to get very odd. Now, I'm going to get to why it goes odd in a second, but with these further tests, with further blood tests, they basically found out that they had the wrong diagnosis. I was not diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma at all. They basically found leukemia in my bloods, which then, to confirm this, they had to take a bone marrow sample, which they took from my hip bone in my back, and then basically sent it off to the labs. And this is where the new diagnosis starts to get confirmed, hence why it becomes odd. So bear with me, please. This is where it gets a bit confusing now. So, with that being said, the results come back and my world basically starts to change, because the cancer that I thought was easily treatable, easily cured, turned into something more serious and basically needed urgent care and a longer course of treatments to be able to control this vigorous cancer that my body has started to develop. Sorry, I'm struggling. I'm not going to admit it's hard to talk about this, but I thought it'd be nice to let you guys know, of course, where I've been for the past 5 years. So this diagnosis ended up being considered as what they call acute lymphoblastic leukemia, T-cell, which is where I started to get enrolled to a completely different hospital, which basically specialised in cancer treatment, which was based in Wishton, closer towards Liverpool, I believe it is. Sorry, I'm getting lost with all my papers here. So, of course, with knowing this new information, I went to Wishton Hospital to start my new cancer treatment under this treatment right here. Oops, I've gone too far. Oh, fudge. Which is the UK UK 14 all protocol, which is basically the UK acute lymphoblastic leukemia protocol, which consisted of these 6 phases, which is, of course, my induction, which is my start of the chemo, getting me started on it, then another induction, then they do a phase which is called intensification, which is more intensive chemotherapy, the consolidation phase, which is basically once I'm in kind of remission, they keep that cancer contained, therefore it can't spread any further into my body or cause any more complications that I was already going through. Then, of course, after the consolidation phase, we have the maintenance phase, which is basically top up chemotherapy with regular checkups and stuff, just to make sure this cancer has been completely killed off before I go for my final scan to confirm everything's been killed off and that my body's starting to head in the right direction. So, starting off with the first induction. Just bear with me a second, guys, just because my friends just messaged me on Facebook because they've been struggling with something. Just bear with me a second. I do apologise. You may call me. I'm not midway through while I'm streaming. So if they do call me, I might have to take this call, and I do apologise. But I'll try and get through most of this before that happens. Okay. In fact, let me just put my phone off silent just so I can hear it. So, where was I? Sorry, I do apologise. So, starting off with induction 1. This was basically the start of my treatment. And I was due to stay in hospital for a month. I remember this. Sorry, guys. I'm really worried about a close friend. I do apologise, guys. I will get to this in a minute. I just want to make sure my friend's okay because they've been going through a lot of stuff at the moment, and I won't obviously share the details because it's not for you guys to know. It's basically her business. Just 1 second, guys. Bear with me. Oops. Struggling to spell. 1 second, guys. I do apologise. I'll get there in a minute. Sorry, guys. I'm going to ignore it for now. I want to crack on with this. So I do apologise just for that small delay. So yeah, as I was saying, first induction, which insisted me in staying in hospital for a month. As you can see here. So this is my first induction, where I was technically in for only 28 days. But obviously with some complications and making sure I was okay, I had to stay a bit longer afterwards just to make sure my body was not reacting vigorously unwell to these poisons that are being pumped into my body, basically. So this first phase consisted of 3 IV chemos, which you can see here. This I'm going to butcher these names again. These toxins. Then Jesus Christ. This Desurabin, which was IV. I had this 4 times, and this was probably taken every few days. So as you can see here, I took it on day 1, day 8, day 15, day 22. This Vincristin, which was another IV chemo I had. Yeah, so 3 IV chemos. So Vincristin, I ended up taking a course on day 1 again, day 8, day 15, day 22. There was another IV chemo that I took, which is this pegylated aspirinase, which I believe is this. Basically, this is used in certain types of chemotherapy, especially for acute lymphoblastic leukemia, which I thought was like for fungal infections to stop you from getting infections, but I can't quite find. I suppose it says what it is. How is it given? Side effects. It doesn't necessarily say what it was used for. But if I do remember rightly, it was for helping fight against certain infections, which... No, that's not it. The body can receive through this intensive chemo. So, yeah. Anyway, I'm going off topic here by going through that. So that was the thing. Another IV chemo that I had, which was basically taken on day 4 and day 18. And then I also had 1 chemo tablet, which is this dimaxiflame, which I took for the first 4 days, took 3 days off, another 4 days, took 3 days off, and then another 4 days, which was basically 10 milligrams of this particular drug. I also received an intrathecal, which many people might know it more as a lumbar puncture. So what they do is they basically draw a line across your spinal column, have you crunch up in a ball in a lumbar puncture position, which basically it's the same procedure women have when they're having babies, but obviously they don't get injected with chemo. It's just to basically so they can draw some fluid out of your spinal column. So basically what they do with me is injects this back with Jesus, anesthetic. I don't know why that word won't come to my mind. Anesthetic into my back, and then basically in that same location they would draw some fluid out of the spinal cord in the lower spinal section of my back, which is basically find like a cross section just in between the 2 spinal columns where they can get the needle in without obviously hitting bone or drawing blood, because if they draw blood then they can't do the procedure, which I have experienced a couple of times while trying to have this procedure done. I don't think it happened. No, it did happen this first time that I had it, and they had to redo it. But yeah, so basically they take the fluid out, and then they would, after that, they'd eject this methotrexate, which is basically chemo, into that same area, which allows the chemotherapy to spread up the spinal column to stop the cancer from spreading to the brain or anywhere else in the body. So mainly to, yeah, stop it spreading out is this reason why this procedure is called. And yes, it is absolutely freaking painful. I don't want to scare anyone who may come up to have an intrathecal, or any women that may need lumbar puncture with regards to pregnancy. Yeah, it's not comfortable, but when you've got a good talented doctor who has practiced it, they can basically do it regardless with minimal pain. You will feel pain and you'll feel that slight discomfort, but it won't be as agonizing when you get used to them. So where are we? So after this, I was basically, after my first induction, I was allowed to return home, where I was on a course of tablets, which basically I would take. Oh, Jesus. This could be a case of sickness tablets as well as painkillers. I think they might put me on steroids as well at this point. I can't remember, just to help my body repair and handle all this hammering from this poison that was just slammed into my system. Then eventually, while also on this break, I had another bone marrow biopsy and more blood tests just to make sure my neutrophils and platelets, which are I think your neutrophils are your red blood cells and your platelets are your white blood cells. I might have got them mixed up, but just make sure they were at the right level and at a healthy level for me to be able to continue my cancer treatment. So after this, basically when everything was ready, I was able to go back to hospital for another month where I started induction 2, which is so as you can see here, yeah. So following recovery, my neutrophils had to be around this level. I have no idea what these numbers mean. Same with the platelets for me to be able to go back, including the bone marrow specimen that they took to make sure everything was okay for me to continue my treatment. So then I went back for another induction, which was week 5 to 8, which was another month in hospital, which I must admit, looking back at it, it was daunting. Thinking about it, having to spend a month or so in hospital on a daily basis, especially during COVID times where I wasn't really allowed to have visitors. So my dad couldn't visit, my mum couldn't visit, I couldn't have friends there to visit me just because of the COVID restrictions. So it was very strict. So I did get to the point where I was very lonely. I did feel like I had moments of kind of like psychotic behaviors where I would just feel very agitated, like I was wanting to kill myself all the time just because I hated the pain of having to go through chemo. And I just wanted to get away from it all and just to end my life. It felt horrible. I'll put it plainly, it was a horrible experience, and I don't want to scare anyone from it, but I am thankful to the NHS and to obviously the help that I had through Macmillan, which is a cancer supports group, as well as other support from my friends and family who actually pushed me through this cancer treatment to get me to the other side, to where I am today, to be able to be back in front of you guys again. So, that being said, I started phase 2, which is this one here. Phase 2 consisted this time of 2 IV chemos, which is this cyclophosphamide, which I took on day 1 and day 15, which consisted of 100 milligrams through an IV drip. And then also another IV chemo, which I had again through, I believe it was a cannula that I had for these. I had this the cytarabine, which is another IV chemo at 75 milligrams, which I took through days 2, 4, 3, 4, and 5, then 9. So every 4 days with basically a 3-day gap in between, as well as the dreaded lumbar punches, which I had again 4 times this time round from day 1, 8, 15, and 12, as well as taking a constant round of chemo tablets, which is this mercaptopurine, which I took a lot of this. This was basically my main chemo oral tablet that I had, and I took that for the full 28 days every day while I was staying in hospital. Then, of course, again, after this, I was allowed to return home whilst taking the tablets again that I needed, which was regards to this mercaptopurine, which I continued taking along top of steroids. I can't remember the name, but it was this like anti-sickness tablets that I took to stop me from wanting to vomit, and other things that I might have needed, such as painkillers. Mainly, I think it was cocodamol or something stronger that they used, because obviously I was in a lot of pain from being pumped with all this chemo. And then basically also around this time, they realised that I was becoming quite difficult to cannulate. And I'm going to take my jumper off here, so bear with me a second, just so I can show you something. So, so around this time, because mainly they'd put the cannula about here in the hands, and my veins, as you, I don't know if you can tell, it's starting to slowly come back, but they're quite cruddy, and it was coming very difficult to cannulate me. So this resulted in to me having to get what they call a PICC line. And I'm going to explain just about, sorry, just making sure I know where I am. So they ordered a PICC line, which basically made it easy for them to um, give me this chemotherapy without having to cannulate me every time trying to find a good vein. So a way a PICC line works is they use like a screen next to him, and they get a specific doctor or surgeon, or I don't know what you call them, that basically comes in with this screen, and basically they kind of numb my arm. I'm not sure if you can see it, but just about here was where my PICC line was. I don't know if you can see that little scar there. It's very hard with this camera, but about here was where my first PICC line was. And basically what they do is run this line with this camera through your vein that they find that's healthy that they can use, run it through towards your heart, and this allows the chemo and any other medications that you have to basically get into your bloodstream a lot quicker and a lot easier. But the problems with this, it can obviously cause formations because you can get blood clots, which I had experienced a few times. They can get infected, which I did once get my PICC line infected. I'll explain this later. There's also the complications of having to change like the PICC line dressing every now and again, which they would like just rip off this big plaster that they put on my arm, clean the PICC line, make sure everything's okay, put a new one on, and it used to be a farce. I'd have to do that like every week or two just to make sure it was clean and healthy, and I'd have to wear like this big plastic cover every time I had a bath or a shower just to basically make sure it didn't get wet. So that was a pain in the backside, as I'm sure many of you can imagine. So so the PICC line was ordered, put into my arm. Also during this time, it's probably about a quarter way through my chemo, especially around probably day 9 through 12 is when I started losing my hair. So I just remember eventually waking up one morning and my whole pillow in my room at the hospital was just covered in my hair. At that point, I obviously knew the chemo was working because, as sort of many of you know, chemotherapy is one of the side effects. You do start to lose your hair. So that was eventful because I did feel kind of horrid when that started to happen. I felt ugly. I felt like I was never going to have that kind of normality back. My hair was never going to come back the same way, which it has with a lot of time and care, a lot of recutting and cutting. There was one time where it did grow back and I developed a condition which they call chemo curls, where my hair came out really curly. It looked like I had a perm. And even though people said I kind of suited it, I fucking hated it. I really hated having chemo curls. It just didn't look right to me because I was kind of always like this fringe and just like that kind of scene alternate emo kind of hairstyle hair that I've always had since I was younger. It's just the kind of style of hair that I've always been into. I don't know why. But yeah, that kind of happened. So basically after this phase, I was then again sent home, where I was given another course of tablets to take alongside that, which was my chemo tablets, steroid tablets, anti-tetanus tablets, and painkillers. alongside where I'd have to go in for the odd blood test during this time I was away from hospital, just to make sure my neutrophils and platelets were coming back up to the right level to be able to continue the next step of my treatment. And this is where things starts to get difficult, because during my break I was sent, after this was probably like, yeah, say the quarter stage maybe for my treatment. I was sent to get a PET CT scan, which is basically a full body scan where they can look at the body, see how the cancer's developed or if it's developed any further, making sure it hasn't spread anywhere to the other areas of my body, and stuff like that. So for this PET CT scan, I was told that I wasn't allowed to drink anything but at least 2 litres of water just before my scan, and I wasn't allowed to eat anything for, I think it was about preferably 8 hours or so before my scan. So upon arriving from a scan, you can imagine I was completely hungry. I was needing a whiz. So every time I did have a toilet break or a wee, I obviously had to re-top up that water I just lost to basically make sure the scan was able to do what it needs to do. So I was then put into a very secluded room in this different hospital that I went to visit for my PET CT scan, where I was cannulated into my wrist because they didn't, some reason they didn't decide to use my pit line. They might use my pit line, I can't remember. But I was injected with a radioactive dye, which was able to spread across my body so that when I did go through the scanner, they could see all the different bits and bats and how this cancer may have progressed or may not have progressed. And then I was sorry, I'm just trying to figure out. Yes, I was put into a room and I was cannulated and injected with this radioactive dye, which is used to look through things in my body. And then I was told before heading into the scanner, I had to sit in darkness. And I was told to avoid looking at my phone or anything bright for at least an hour. So I was sat in this dark room with some music they had playing through the speakers, which was, I think it's like Heart Radio or some radio station they had on. So I was sat in there for a good hour in complete darkness, just to make sure the dye didn't get infected and or disrupt any readings that would be done during the scanning. So when that dye was set and got through all my body, I was sent into the scanner room, and I was told to remove any clothing that basically may have had any metal in them. I was told to put on a hospital gown. Basically, with regards to that, because you have it metal, you go through a big scanner, the metal gets attracted to the magnetics in that scanner, and basically can probably, I don't know, yeah, you can imagine the strong magnetic pulse will just drag my body up towards the scanner and probably rip me insides out, or I don't know. Just my rough memory of it. So again, bear with me on that one. So with that done, I was then put onto the scanner, where I laid down flat, and basically they moved me slowly back into this big circular scanner. I'm not sure if anyone's ever seen a CT scanner. It's like a big kind of circular machine where you have like a flatbed which basically moves back like this as you come into the scanner, so they can scan your full body with thermal images with regards to the radioactive dye that was in my body, so they could see what was happening inside. And then I was basically in that for half an hour. After that was completed, I was taken to another room where I was given a drink, basically something to eat, just to prevent any dizziness or nausea that I may have picked up from the scanner, just make sure I was okay. And then once cleared, I was allowed to go home. And This is where things start to get a bit more advanced. So please, again, bear with me here. Once the results were ready, I was then invited to a cancer specific hospital in Liverpool called Clatterbridge, which always dealt with cancers. It didn't do anything else. It dealt with all kinds of cancer, from breast cancer, blood cancer, lymphomas, any form of cancer you can imagine, prostate cancer, yada yada yada. Um, on arrival, I had to do a health check where they basically took bloods, did temperature checks, blood pressure checks, just to make sure I was healthy. And then, as the results come back, I was taken into a meeting room with a cancer consultant from Clatterbridge, where we had a long discussion with him and one of the nurses, basically to discuss my results and the potential steps moving forward for my treatment. This is where I was basically told that my CT scan was looking positive, which is a good sign, and that my cancer was already looking like it was already in remission. Most likely from catching it early due to my anaphylactic shock from my antibiotics and starting that R-CHOP treatment that I was wrongfully diagnosed with to start on, which basically helped kill some of the cells off and put me in remission already. So a win-win. So you would say. So even though that basically helped, I was then told I had two options. Option one, which would have been a full bone marrow transplant, or what they call stem cell transplants. I'm losing my word in here. Yeah. So which would mean I'd have to go into Clatterbridge, stay underneath their care for months and months, where they basically pump my body full of harsh chemotherapy and radiotherapy to kill off all the cancer and any of my stem cells which are in my bone marrow, which I'm going to switch here just to show you roughly. So bear with me while we go through this. So what is a stem cell or bone marrow transplant? A transplant allows you to have high doses of chemotherapy and other treatments. The stem cells are collected from the bloodstream or the bone marrow. This can be either done with your own stem cells from your own bone marrow, or you can get a transplant from a donor, which was the thing that I was going to go for. So who might have a transplant? People with leukemia, lymphomas, myeloma, other types of cancers. So stem cells are basically a very early cells that are made in your bone marrow, which are found in the hip bone here. And the stem cells are developed into three different types of blood cells. They are your red cells, which is what they call hemoglobin, which basically carries oxygen around your body. The white blood cells, which are part of your immune system, which help fight against infections, and platelets, which help clot the blood and stop bleeding. I did have a few of these where I was lacking blood, so I had to have like blood transfusions. I also had to have platelet transfusions, which with the platelet transfusions, I did experience a few complications where I developed hives, which are like small little dimples and rashes, which just gone all over the body to the point where I had to get injected with antihistamines to get rid of those hives to be able to continue with my platelets and make sure I wasn't getting fully infected. So how do these transplants work? So before you transplant, basically you go through conditioning. Conditioning treatment usually includes chemotherapy. You might also have targeted cancer drugs, radiotherapy, which is done to your whole body. And the conditioning treatment aims to kill the cancer cells, but it can also kill these stem cells, which are found in your bone marrow. To prepare you for the transplant, your team either collects your own stem cells or takes stem cells from a donor, which we're going to do for me, which I'll go to in more detail later on. And then basically you'd start, which I would have probably been on this one here. So conditioning for a donor transplant, I'd been on a full probably intensity conditioning, which is called MAC, which your doctor would call this as melitative conditioning, or MAC, which is a high dose of treatment which can kill all the cancer cells and can also destroy all the healthy cells in your body. This is where it can get dangerous, because basically what they end up doing then after that is injecting you with these new stem cells from someone else's body to basically get those healthy cells back, and basically think of it as a rebirth. It's like being reborn, but as someone else's cells, but still you. It's very confusing. So main difference between stem cells are collected from the bloodstream or bone marrow. A stem cell transplant uses stem cells from your bloodstream or a donor's bloodstream. This is also called a phosphorus blood stem cell transplant. A bone marrow transplant uses stem cells from your bone marrow or a donor's bone marrow. This is what I was going to have. So, yeah. So here is how basically it would work if I was getting this transplant. So, again, it depends on your type of cancer, what other treatments you've had, your general health, and whether your medical team thinks they can find a donor to be basically match your body to produce new stem cells for you. Stages, of course, is preparation, finding the donor, condition treatment, stem cell collection from your donor, and then you have your donor stem cells injected into your body, and this rebuilds the body. To do this, instead of my PICC line that I would have to have a thing that they call a central line put in. The central line is basically one that stays connected. I think it starts into your chest here and goes straight down into your heart. So you can see where the connections are here. The connections for the drips and syringes come out of here, and then this tube basically feeds into your heart. So it's more direct into your main heart and bloodstream, for example. Fatality, finding a donor, blah, 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 blah. You get the gist. So, this is where things get interesting. So, as I was told about this, two options, one being obviously the bone marrow transplant, which would have been the whole cells being killed off, blah, 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 blah. I was told basically I'd go from a predictive 20 to 25% chance of living down to a very, very small 10 to 15% chance of living. This is how basically it comes to terms like how dangerous some treatments can be, but the payoff, if it works out, is great. So if I went for this bone marrow transplant, I'd probably be completely cancer free, no chance of it coming back whatsoever, blah, 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 blah. But the option I went for, which basically they already said, thankfully, due to being in remission from my RCHOP treatment, I was told that the second option would work just as well for me, which was basically to continue doing the UK All 14 protocol, which still had a low survival rate, not going to lie, but it was better than having the transplant, because the transplant could possibly, most likely, definitely killed me. But then again, I wouldn't have known unless I went through that transplant. But considering that the cancer was already contained and it was in remission, they thought, okay, there's no point you going through this and basically giving you that very, very high chance of death we can save you if you continue through cancer, but the best we can probably do is contain it and keep it contained, because there's always a chance it could come back, like any cancer, to be honest. So with that, I went from a very scary potential possibility of dying through a transplant to being here now after my treatment, still slightly weak, but I'm still alive and kicking. And again, thank God and everyone else around me, the NHS, Matt Millen, everyone who pushed me through my chemotherapy to get me to the other side, that I'm alive here today. I'm able to stream again for you guys. and keep going. So with that said, I started the next phase of my treatment, which is the where is it? This bit here. The intensification and central nervous system paralysis. This was carried out basically 3 weeks following recovery from phase 2. And basically, if there was a donor, I could have still gone for my transplant. But of course, it said the transplant would have been, even though maybe successful, I'd been better off just continuing my treatment. So henceforth, we pushed on with my treatment. So here I was admitted back into hospital for another month, where I was injected with 2 rounds of intensive IV chemo, which was this methotrexate, which is a very powerful poison for chemotherapy, but does help kill the cancer cells off quite nicely, but can also cause a lot of harm to the body. So I took this on day 1 and 15, as well as this, again, this pegylated aspirin eyes, which I think is the one that was used to stop infections, which I took on day 2 and 16. During this phase, I did come across a couple of issues. One of the main issues is I got a blood clot in my heart, to the point where it delayed this treatment a little bit. So they kind of pushed some things a bit more forward, to hence where I had to stay in hospital a bit longer, where they pumped my body with antibiotics to help with this blood clot, to basically get the blood clot down. I went back for another CT scan to make sure I was heading in the right direction. And once we knew I was okay, they could continue. There was also another complication which appeared, which I did explain earlier on, is the PICC line, which can get infected. It can happen sometimes if it's not cleaned out properly, or some chemos have affected the PICC line area. These infections can occur, to the point where they had to remove the PICC line. So they took the dressing off, carefully pulled the PICC line out of my system, and there's like these 2 little kind of like butterfly metal clips which hang just underneath your skin, which was here for me on the first one, and they kind of like pull out, and it does hurt, but it feels better when it's out, kind of thing. So it didn't bother me too much. To the point then they had to obviously replace that PICC line with another one. This, they had to obviously find a new vein, because they couldn't use the same vein, because that one was already pretty much healed up, and trying to go through the same line because it was infected. After clearing the infection, obviously they had to clear the infection first. To make sure I was healthy enough to have a new one. So they couldn't use the same hole, so eventually they come further around. So where the first one was like here, where you can just see the mark. It's very hard with this camera. They did another one where you can just about see the lines here. Again, it's very difficult. My lighting in this room is very terrible, so I do apologise. But yeah, I'm not sure you can see it very well. But basically did another PICC line there, where again they had to use the same method as using the screen, carefully placing the PICC line into my skin and guiding it back towards my heart, to be able to continue the chemotherapy through a PICC line. So once that was put in and I was feeling okay, I was allowed to return home, to where I was allowed to fully recover until my neutrophils and platelets were back to a suitable level, as well as taking the medication that I was sent out with. And then when I was in a good state to continue, we come back to hospital, where I started my sorry if I pronounced this wrong, consolidation therapy. And this was split into a series of cycles. So once obviously my levels are back to normal, I started the first cycle, which is this one here. You guys can't really see this very well, can you? I just realised with my big head in the way. So start this consolidation phase, cycle 1. When my neutrophils were back at these levels, let's see how the platelets, and this consisted of 3 IV chemos, which you can see here, this erectrobin, which I took for 5 days, this epticide, which I took for 5 days, the aspirinase, whatever you call it. I always butcher that name because it's very long and difficult. I just frankly can't be asked. Let me just jot this down a minute. There we go. Oops, I'm going too far. There we go. And as well as the dreaded intrathecal. So I already took the aspirinase, which is the bacterial stuff to help fight against infections, which I took on day 5, and then obviously methotrexate I took on day 1 alongside the 2 IV chemos. And then again, once after this, I was allowed to return home. I was allowed to return home alongside other tablets and rest, just to let that whole palada settle in my system. And come back again after a few weeks. So commencing 3 weeks from cycle day 1, so this was 2 weeks after I got released, because that lasted a week. So technically you got the week, 2 weeks off, and then we start cycle 2. So I went back for cycle 2, which again is pretty identical to the first cycle, but this time without the aspirinase. So it consisted of 2 IV chemos, 1 intrathecal, the sertraline exercise I took for 5 days, and then the intrathecal into my spinal column was just on day 1. Then after this treatment, I was allowed again to return home, where I took tablets again to help with the process and waited for those levels to come back up. And then once again, when my neutrophils and platelets were back to normal, I went back to hospital to start a monthly stay this time for cycle 3, which consisted of days 1 through 28, which was basically called the consolidation phase and delayed intensification, which again, 3 weeks after, including the first week of that chemo that I had and the 2 weeks off, I was ready to start week 3. This consisted of 2 IV chemos, which is this drotrobin and the vincristine, which took on day 1, 8, 15, and 22, as well as this aspirinase to help fight against the infections, which I took on day 4. I also took a oral tablet, a chemotherapy tablet called dexamethasone, which I can't remember what this one did. I think it helped with sickness as well. Or was that the prednisolone? No. Sorry, this is just a straight up chemotherapy tablet, which I took 1 to 4 days, 3 days off, another 4 days, another 3 days off, another 4, 3 days off again, and another 4, alongside 2 intrathecals this time round into a spinal column on day 2 and 17. During this time, I come under a lot of, I wouldn't say, well, not a lot of complications, but there were some major complications which, again, disrupted my chemotherapy treatment and put delays on things. From this chemotherapy, I developed a condition called C. diff, which is a viral infection which basically affects your stomach and intestines, and basically makes you have very bad diarrhea. So this, I had to do like a log of this is going to sound disgusting, I do apologize, but I had to do a log of every time I had a poo, and looked at like how hard it was, the softness of it, if it had any lumps, any colours, different colours such as like brown, black stool, brown stool, and then with that they would give me the things to get my poo back into the normal way a normal person should shit, so the normal colour, the normal kind of consistency. You get the gist. I'm not gonna go too much into that because it is disgusting, but yeah, I had to make a log, and it took me, I think, about 2 weeks before this to properly settle. But with this, viral infection caused another delay in my treatment, because obviously I had to wait for my poo to be normal and for the infection to disappear, even though it's disgusting. And this again is a disgusting phrase. I do apologise again, but because of this C. diff, I developed another condition where basically I picked up appendicitis because poo basically got stuck in my intestines because it wasn't digesting properly, to the point I had to have my appendix removed, which put another delay on my treatment after going home. I won't show you the pictures of the appendicitis because it's very vivid and horrible. I had basically keyhole surgery where I was admitted for, I think it only took about maybe a couple of days when I went into hospital for it. So I was readmitted to the same hospital. Went to have my appendix removed, which did keyhole surgery, which is like 3 little incisions into my stomach in 3 different areas to basically zap my appendix and pull it out and remove it. This caused my stomach to go through a lot of harsh bruising, where I had like a big massive bruise on my stomach, which was like purpley yellow, and I giggle about it because even looking back at the pictures, it looked like someone kissed me with like brown yellow lipstick on my stomach, so it just like big 2 lips, and then like the bruises where it just spanned out. And basically that took, obviously as you can imagine, a long time for it to settle and for my stomach to get its normal colour back, and for the pain and side effects from the appendicitis to basically come back to normal, should we say. So after that, where are we? Once healed from the appendicitis, I then returned to continue the next cycle of the consolidation phase, which was a 28 or 29 as they call it to 49-day cycle, which is this one here, which consisted of 2 IV chemos as well as this mercaptopurine, which was a oral tablet that I took, which was chemo tablet, which I took every day from day 29 through to 42. And this was one of my main chemo tablets which I took through my whole treatment. This is what I got sent home with quite a lot. So I'll explain that again. So yeah, I took this soft side, which is this one here. So this particular thing, they had to, again, this is going to sound disgusting, but they had to monitor my pee intake. So they had to look at like the colour of my pee, how much I peed, do different like level checks on it, where I'd have to like pee in those kind of like cylinder cups that you used to get for sending off samples to the lab. So they basically used that to basically show proper kidney function and basically making sure my kidneys will get into a healthy level again after that cleared my system. So I think this particular, this particular thing, when you put it into my system on day 29, I was pumped with this for about 24 hours straight. Hence why I needed to pee so much. And I remember this vividly because I used to hate it. But to be fair, it was part of the process and I just put up with it. And then also, obviously, after that cleared the system, I was taking this serotibine, which is a chemo, which I took on day 30 through 33 and 37 through 38, alongside this to help fight the cancer and beat it to a bloody pulp. And then, where are we? After that, so when my kidney function was back to normal and everything was healthy after I got sent home, and once my platelets were back to normal again and back to this level, I'd say with my neutrophils, I was brought back to the final cycle of the consolidation phase, identical again to cycle 2. So basically, it's the same as, completely identical to cycle 2, which is again serotibine for 5 days, etoposide for 5 days with 1 intrathecal, and that was it. That completed the consolidation phase. Then again, I was taken home to recover alongside medication, steroids, painkillers, yada yada yada, lived a lot. And then lastly, and this is my phase before I went back to make sure I had the all clear for my cancer, I started the maintenance phase. So once my platelets and neutrophils were back to normal, I was put on this maintenance phase, which lasted for 2 full years. Hence why this was a long, lengthy process and why it took me 5 years before I returned streaming. I was put on. So this consisted of 1 IV chemo, which is every 3 months, which is this vincristine. So I'd go into the hospital where I still had my PICC line, and they would do this vincristine through my PICC line every 3 months. I think around this time they realised, because I'm on the maintenance phase, they didn't really need to do the PICC line all the time, and because I had to keep going in every now and again to get clean and washed and all that plardy, they thought it'd just be easy just to remove it, and then every 3 months I'd go in just to get cannulated just to have this chemo, because it just seemed a lot easier instead of having to keep cleaning and doing all the shit they had to do for my PICC line. So they took the PICC line out. I think I was in triage. It was during Christmas. I think I eventually got it out in 2024, maybe. Yeah, around 2024, 2025. No, 2024. I went and got it taken out. Yeah, I think that's right. Sorry, I'm just trying to remember. My brain's just trying to think back. But yeah, 2024 I got taken out, just then got cannulated every 3 months just to have this vincristine for 2 years. Alongside that, I had this 1 chemo tablet called prednisolone, which I took 5 days for every 3 months. I think this was more of a anti-sickness tablet, even though it does say here for prednisolone. It's concentrated as, oh no, this is a steroid. This is my steroid I took. So this is what my steroids that I had to take was called. It's called prednisolone. And I took that 5 days every 3 months. So every cycle, I'd go in from a vincristine. I'd start a new 5-day cycle of my prednisolone. Alongside that, I was taking mercaptopurine, which was my main chemotherapy tablet, which I had to take daily, every day for the 2 years. Alongside a methotrexate tablet, which I took once per week. And then every 3 months, also, I had to go in for a dreaded intrathecal, which I had every 3 months, which, looking at it, I think I must have had a total of about 12 to 15 of these by the time I finished my treatment. So my back was in agony constantly, as you can imagine. So after the 2 years, I was sent back to a cancer hospital in Liverpool for another PET-CT scan, where again did all the sit in the darkness, have the dye put into my body, blah 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 blah. And that was basically done to ensure all the cancer was killed off and sustained, to basically say I was still in remission, which I am today. And now, just to finish up my whole scenario to cancer. To be fair, thought it was going to take me longer than this. It's only took me an hour and 20 minutes to get through this, so I'm quite happy. I now attend regular checkups with the hospital every few months. I do this for the next 5 years. So it's like every 2 to 3 months I'd go in just to have blood tests and to have a conversation with a cancer consultant just to make sure my body's heading in the right direction and everything is healing the way it should be. And touch wood, to this day, my neutrophils and all my levels have been substantial. He's had no worries of my cancer returning, even though that I have explained to him that I've had problems with pains in my back. I've had lots of pains in my legs where I've been getting lots of pins and needles, struggling to walk. But this can be quite common after having been through intensive chemo. These are just some of the side effects that can happen and can take quite a number of years for those to subside. I think there was a story that my dad told me a while ago. I think it was Dynamo, who also has been through cancer. He told his story with regards to how he felt after chemotherapy, where chemo made him gain weight. And I mean, I've noticed that myself. I've gained a bit of weight. I've been trying to get rid of it, and it's just not shifted. And I've been trying to change my diet, all this, all that. I've been through dietitians, through hospital, saying you need to do this, you need to exercise, blah 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 blah, to try and shift this weight, which has been difficult. And I do neglect it sometimes, I do admit, because I just hate doing exercises, and I do like to eat things that I enjoy eating. I don't like eating bland foods like veggies, carrots, all that things. I'm quite a fussy eater, even though I'm trying to better myself recently. So yeah, that's a thing. And he experienced like being fat. He's been called names and stuff by people. They're saying, "Oh, you put on so much weight and blah blah blah. You're really fat and all this." And that obviously can affect his depression. And I've been through that thing where I felt ugly, felt hated, felt like I'd never develop any relationships with anyone. Hence why I've kept myself away from potentially finding a new relationship, just because I felt ugly and I didn't know when my cancer would come back. It was always kind of this scare thing in the back of my head where, like, yeah, what if it comes back though? And then I've started a new life and they find out I've got cancer again, and it's like puts a scare on them, which I don't want to put a scare on them, just to say like I could potentially die. And yeah, that's the thought that kind of put me off it. But step by step, through therapy, through talking to people, talking to friends, going to depression groups afterwards, um, other things, I've slowly started to come out of my shell. My confidence is starting to rise again, and I'm slowly starting to get back into things. Hence why now, after 5 years of being absent from Twitch, I'm finally basically able to come back to you guys and stream again. So I do apologise, and I hope you managed to bear with me through the long um, hour and a half babbling about my cancer journey and where I've been for the past 5 years. I do appreciate the people who do come by to watch, and if you rewatch this, I have recorded this, and I will, if I can remember my YouTube details, because that's been a long time, I'll put it on my YouTube as well. But if anyone has any questions or anything about cancer, or how to deal with cancer, or how to deal with someone going through cancer and what you can do for them, please feel free to shoot me a message here on Twitch, or feel free to shoot me a message on Twitter, or X as it's now called, because for some reason they're trying to call it X. No idea. Must have been something that definitely happened while I was away in hospital. I don't know. Anyway, but yeah, if you have any questions or anything you'd like to know, please feel free to shoot me a message. And I'll godly help you talk through it. Or if you have any things, especially if you're going through it yourself, you're not in this alone. There are help groups, especially Macmillan. Other cancer patients I found, I think when I was going through it, I found a group dealing with my particular cancer on Facebook, which I joined, and they shared their experiences and their strengths and hopes, which helped get me through cancer, and I was able to ask them questions and stuff like that. So there are people out there, there are groups out there to any specific type of cancer. You just got to search it and or ask Macmillan, and they can put you in the right direction to that information to get you the help you need, because there's no way anyone should face this alone. I mean, I tried to face it alone, and I found it the hard way that I struggled. Hence, where I had major depression, I was wanting to commit suicide, all that stuff. And yeah, it can be quite hard. But there are people out there, as long as you have the right support group through friends, family, and reach out to the right people, you will get through it. And I'm just thankful to this day for the NHS, to Macmillan, to all my friends and family, even you guys that have supported me through this whole journey. I think I do want to bring it up. I'm gonna just quickly check here. I'm just gonna have a look at my Twitter because I want to say a big thank you to a lot of people. I can't remember if I put it on my Twitter, but it was a while ago now where I posted something regarding my cancer treatment, to where my dad basically went and raised money for Cancer UK and Blood Cancer UK, where he went and got his head shaved like me, to be bold, to basically show his support for me going through cancer. And I'm trying to find the thing now. It was a long time ago when we put it up. I don't know when we put it up. That's the problem. I'm having to scrolling. That's my post for my first day of cancer. No, I must have not put it up. But I did put up a thing a while ago, and I planned to do it myself, where my dad did go off and raise money. We put up a link towards Cancer UK, where I think we raised around about 2.5 to 3K in a space of a few months, which is mind blowing. And I thank all the people, if I did put it up on Twitter, I just can't remember, to all those who did donate. I do appreciate that. I do plan on, when I get comfortable with Twitch again and got everything set up and I feel more settled, I do want to do my own kind of fundraising towards cancer, where I might consider doing a 24-hour stream to basically raise money for Blood Cancer UK and to Cancer UK. Yeah, that would just be a nice testament, just to show my appreciation for those who helped me and supported me and got me through this difficult 5 years. But yeah, that's my journey and the explanation of where I've been for the past 5 years. I was going to do a short stream of some gaming, but I'm getting rather hungry, so what I might do for now is stop my stream for a minute. I'll go and grab some food, and I might, well, no, not might, I will potentially come back. My mate had been reminding me to play DayZ with him, so if he's still around and wants to play DayZ, I might stream some DayZ with him, as we're on a modded server right now. We've been having a lot of fun with that recently, even though that's not mainly my favourite game in the world, but it's more of a chill game because recently I've been playing a lot of FIFA, and I'm sure many of you know from FIFA, it can be very, very toxic community and very sweaty, to the point where I have had rage moments. I've smashed TVs, I've smashed controllers like an absolute idiot due to getting angry and playing like an absolute shitter. Well, yeah, I am shit at FIFA, I'll admit it. I am dreadful at FIFA, especially this year. I just can't get my head around it. I can't find the right tactics. I can't, I got a great team. I just seem to be struggling this year to play. But yeah, hence why I want to potentially play that on stream. So I was thinking about playing a PC game, just like a chill thing, either playing World of Warcraft, or I was going to do this TCG card shop simulator, which I was just thinking of playing just for a short amount of time, just to start today. And then tomorrow I may hook up the PlayStation or Xbox, and we might play. I do want to do Baldur's Gate eventually. I've been playing a lot of Baldur's Gate recently on my own. I'm on Act 3 at the moment with one of my characters, so it would be nice to potentially start a new character. I've based this one that I'm started at the moment on Sung Jin Woo from Soul Leveling, I've been trying to do his build, which has been quite a really good build, and I've got a strong team around him, which has been quite nice. And yeah, I've been able to glide through it quite nicely. So it would be nice to maybe start a different character with you guys, so not having to do the same one, because obviously you missed all the content leading up to Act 3. So that's a possibility. I'll probably base it on maybe another anime character or something else. I don't know yet. We'll see. But that's a possibility. I also want to play. What's it called? It's gonna come to me. Silent Hill F. I've been playing that as well. I've completed my first playthrough of it. So I'd happy to restart playthrough plus with you guys, so we can unlock more secret endings, as well as I think there's a sword you can find in one of the shrines after play plus. So I'm hoping to try and find that and learn how to find that, because that would be cool. So that's another possibility, but we can decide that at a later date. But for now, guys, I think I'm going to stop my stream for now. I'm going to go grab some food. I'll try and get back on for maybe about 7, depending on how long it takes me to eat. Say 7, 8 o'clock at a push. I'll see what my mate's doing. If he wants to play some DayZ after I've eaten, we can come back and play some DayZ. If not, I'll probably do the TCG shop, which I've not quite bought yet. It's only the demo version, so it's limited, but it's something. So thank you guys for listening, for my rambling on about my disappearance of my cancer for the last 5 years. I appreciate those who have come by, and even though you might not stop by, say hello, or you might rewatch this at a later date, I appreciate all the support and everyone who's pushed me through this cancer. Again, I thank you deeply from the bottom of my heart, because without you guys, without my friends and family, I don't know how I would have got through it. So thank you so much for that. I do appreciate it. But yeah, for now, I'm going to go grab some food because I'm absolutely Hank Marvin. And I shall see you guys in about an hour or so. So peace. See you guys. Bye.